everybody, it is the Lawn Gnome, and welcome back to the DC Animated Film Live Show. It has been quite some time since myself and, of course, my guest is always, listen, Bryan was dealing with a lot of stuff, and I said to him, because we always talk, because we are very, very good friends over the years, I said, dude, we're not going to get back to this until I know for certain that you are officially 100%. So we've been talking, and it looks like we were ready to go, and we are back to discuss some more DC animated films. So, Bryan, I just want to say it is great to have you back. I'm so glad.
Thanks, man. Good to be here, as always. Yeah, let's talk some DC movies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just in case you are new to this live show, welcome. It is a pleasure to have you. My subscribers keep increasing by the day, and it's always very good to see that. The community is wonderful. And when we last left off, we like to split these films up into what I refer to as books. So, we skipped around a little bit last time. We talked a couple of movies from book 4 and book 5 because these two specific groupings of films are actually something that I don't think we really anticipated in terms of what this film library was going to be. But Bruce Timm and company, especially with him stepping aside and Sam Register taking over as the executive producer, we started to see a continuation of films very similar to the MCU films and now the DCEU films. So what we got was a new 52 storyline that was split in two. And last time we spoke, we talked about all the Batman films that were part of this new 52 timeline. But now we're going to talk about the second, because believe it or not, there's also a third, but we'll talk about that at some other point in time. But we're going to be talking about the second timeline in the new 52 lineage, and that is revolving around Justice League. So I am really excited to talk about these three films. I don't know what our overall feelings are going to be about them because, rewatching them, you never know how you're going to feel. But let's start with the movie that really starts this all. It's the prelude, the prologue, whatever you want to call it. It's Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. I was very excited for this movie because I knew that it was more in the DC comic book universe that pretty much gave birth to the new 52, and it was a very dramatic story. But what I was really excited for was the fact that we were finally going to get a movie that was finally revolving around a different superhero. We were getting oversaturated with Batman and Superman stories, and I was surprised that we didn't even get more Wonder Woman and Green Lantern stories. But we got more Justice League films, and this one revolves around the Flash. So I was very excited to see how they were going to have the Flash as a headliner. So let's begin with the discussion. I'll leave it to you, Bryan.
Well, yeah, I mean, first off, the whole timelines thing, it's a bit confusing to me because, as you know, I'm a big Batman fan. I used to read a lot of Batman comic books and stuff, but I left comic books around Grant Morrison's era. So Son of Batman, that kind of thing, wasn't that big on what he was doing with it. And I kind of, plus I got priced out, quite frankly. You can't have a family and not have a high-paying job and still blow loads of money on comic books. So yeah, I had to just let it go. So all this new 52 stuff, while I'm aware of it, I can't say I fully wrap my head around it. I know that they started DC from scratch again, a bit like a Crisis on Infinite Earths kind of thing. But some things in the history remain, some don't. But then apparently they didn't just have one universe. There's others, and it's just like, this is my problem. This was my problem with the comic books. It's why one of the reasons I just couldn't keep up, because you didn't know what was continuity with what, and it really annoyed me. I'm a bit nervous, to tell you the truth, that they brought that now into the movies. that doesn't affect my opinion of this movie though, because I'll say right up front, this movie is awesome. When you look at the DC animated line, this is definitely up there. This is one of the best ones that we've had. Um, it becomes a bit problematic when we get into the next film, purely because that's when the continuity thing comes in. That's when I'm kind of like, oh, okay. So this is before war, and yet, well, we'll get to that when we get to war. Let's just
Yeah.
deal with this.
We'll try and unpack everything and try to make it more
Mm,
sense before we leave today.
yeah. No, as for this film, absolutely fantastic. I'm gonna go with my boy Batman because let's face it, he's the main draw for me with any of these. Um, I love where they go with this. I love that they bring Thomas Wayne into the fray as a Batman. So we see this alternate universe in which Thomas Wayne became Batman as a result of Bruce being the one that got killed. And yeah, love where they go with it. And probably the standout moment for me in this, and it's probably a moment that maybe a lot of Batman fans would be a bit touchy about. I don't know, because Bruce wouldn't cry or this, that, and the other. But like I'm getting to the end before we've even done the beginning. But it's just for me, it's as a Batman fan, it's the moment that really stands out, and that's when the Flash gives Bruce the letter from his father at the end, and he's reduced to tears, and it's like, yeah, this is a guy who's devoted his entire life to fighting crime because of the loss of this man, and now this man gets to speak to him from from where he's sitting, from beyond the grave. And it's just, yeah, it's a great moment, really well handled, I feel. But this is a film full of moments like that, I think. What's the standout moment in this for you?
Ooh. Well, one of the few things that really shocked me about this film in general was the level of violence. Like, they really kick
Mm,
that one up to 11. And it is such a visual stunner when you're watching some of these moments. And I think the moment that actually really like got me to have to pause the movie and just rewatch it was the final battle, because there's a whole bunch of battles happening at once, and one of them is involving Professor Zoom against the Flash, but then there is this massive war between the Amazonians and the Atlanteans, and one of the characters that gets caught in the crossfire was a character named Grifter, who I remember being from the Image comics on the Team Wildcats, and he gets he gets shot in the head with arrows. And I'm like, wait a minute. Did they actually just show a guy get shot in the head with an arrow? Like, I was blown away by how they really pushed that bar. And I always knew that Bruce Timm was one to push those bars. I mean, you mentioned Batman crying, but don't forget, in an episode of Justice League, we got Batman to sing. So that's one of the few things that I was sort of excited to see, but at the same time, not necessarily surprised, because all of these guys, whether it's Paul Dini or Alan Burnett or Sam Liu or Lon Montgomery, all these people that have been involved with these animated character versions of these legendary names, they've always managed to give us something fresh and something intense and something new. So that was probably what really surprised me. It was just how dramatic and how graphically violent the film was. I really did not anticipate it. And even when you see the Flash basically getting beaten to a bloody pulp, that's just like it's devastating to watch your heroes take a beating like that. It's like going all the way back to Superman Doomsday when you see Superman cough up all that blood for the first time. It's like it brings a tear to your eye, and it brings emotions to a much higher level than you're used to with these characters, because you just don't see them as often as you would think, and it gets very intense.
Mm. The bizarre thing for me with this movie is that, and I kind of mentioned this before we went on, is the other Justice League film, Gods and Monsters. We've had two movies now. We've had two Justice League movies where they've taken place in alternate universes, and I think I said on that show when we reviewed that movie that when I read stories like this in comic books, alternate universe movies, that kind of thing, and in episodes of TV shows and whatnot, they never really intrigue me all that much because you're in a different universe. You can do whatever you want with the characters. You can kill them off. It doesn't matter. We're never going to see these versions of them again. And yeah, so you kind of feel like there ain't really any stakes. But actually, when you introduce those personal elements that can come out of that alternate universe, the letter to Bruce from his father, then that alternate universe is no longer something that is just, it's rewritten, it's fixed. We don't have to think about it. It's something that's actually touched our characters, affected our characters in the real world, so to speak. So I like that, and like I say, as with Gods and Monsters, I'm really surprised by the fact that this kind of film, this alternate reality kind of film, can be so strong, can be one of the best films, that we've had. When you have an element that actually none of this should really matter because once you get to the end of it and gone back to its own timeline, then it's null and void. But no, it still still has power, still has impact, and you wouldn't expect it to. So yeah, that's the most surprising thing for me.
Yeah, I also really loved all of the treats that the DC fandom gets. And it really, for me, it starts with the beginning. I mean, we see what happens, the legendary moment in Flash's life when his mother dies, but then we immediately get into, his life as a Justice Leaguer. And I know that we had this discussion off camera where it was a little bit confusing in terms of the timelines, but I think where this movie starts is I sort of reverted back to Bruce animated series of Justice League. That's that Justice League that I thought about because it was the classic DC lineup, and I loved that they got almost all of Flash's rogues gallery to have at least one speaking role in there. Like, it was just because everybody, especially if you go back to the Super Friends days, you know who Captain Cold is, but not many people know who Heatwave is, who the Top is, Mirror Master, Captain Boomerang. We've seen various movies, and now since Suicide Squad came out, people know who Captain Boomerang is, and it was all done under the leadership of Professor Zoom, who united them all. But then you get a look at the Justice League that they got lined up, and you got all the great characters, and you've got a stellar voice cast in this movie, probably one of the best. I know that we mentioned Kevin Conroy, but think about all of these great people that we got, especially when it comes to some of the major characters. First of all, he wasn't even that well known yet, but Michael B. Jordan was in this movie. He voiced Cyborg. That was pretty damn awesome. And Superman that was in this movie was voiced by Tim Daly's son, Sam Daly.
Wow. Okay, I did
So
not
the
know
fact that you had
Yeah.
Superman, so the fact that you got like the father and son who had both lent their voice to Superman was absolutely fantastic. We also had Dana Delaney coming back to voice Lois Lane, who had voiced Lois Lane in Superman the Animated Series, which was great. We had Nathan Fillion, who came back to voice Green Lantern. That was even cooler. We also have another legendary voice actress in Jennifer Hale, who played Iris and Billy, who is also known as Captain Marvel. But in this case, you had Captain Marvel and Captain Thunder, who's the alternative version. But the two voices for me that really stand out in this film is C. Thomas Howell, classic 80s teen heartthrob C. Thomas Howell as Professor Zoom, And probably, if you are out there and you don't want to take Aquaman seriously, you will be terrified by this alternative version of Aquaman, who is voiced brilliantly by Carrie Ellis. And if you don't know who Carrie and Princess Bride fans, you know who Carrie Ellis is. You will never look at Carrie Ellis the same way again when you hear and see this dark, towering, menacing version of Aquaman, because this alternate universe is terrifying. Everything that you could possibly expect to have gone wrong goes wrong. Especially with the fact that the world is literally about to be torn apart because of the war going on between Wonder Woman and the Amazons and Aquaman and the Atlanteans. And I also have to give the movie props, even though it didn't really take up too much of the film's time. I loved that they did a visual montage of the events that led up to the war. I liked that. It was done very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, I had a few thoughts then, and they've just been scrambled. Sorry. I think with Aquaman, definitely what you said here. Just like I'm not that keen on his design. I've never been that keen on the really simple design where it's just orange top, green pants. It's like the design. I prefer the more Jason Momoa kind of design. Which,
yeah, that was the 1990s one. The only thing that's missing with the Jason Momoa is the one with the harpoon hand.
Yeah, the hook like that to me would be absolutely badass. If you have, and they chop his arm off in this as I think a bit of a nod really to that. But yeah, it would be nice. I mean, the first thing I ever read of Aquaman, to be honest, was a crossover issue in Superboy that he did, which he was quite badass in that, and he just kind of owned Superboy. But yeah, if you give me that version of Aquaman in the new Aquaman film, I'll be happy. But yeah, as a character in this, like you say, really badass, really like him. Not that keen on his design, the way he's drawn. But it doesn't deflate too much. With regards to my only other criticism of it, I would say there's the moment when we see Bruce gets shot and his dad basically beats, well, I guess Joseph Chill beats him to a bloody pulp. And then there's a moment, it's like a really bizarre moment when Martha just starts laughing, and she rubs the blood on her mouth, and it creates this kind of smile, like the Joker smile. And when I was watching it, it really caught me off guard. I was like, "What's going on here?" Because you have to bear in mind, I've not read any of the comics.
Yeah, that was a nod to the comics. That was a nod to the comics. I wouldn't have known that either. I agree with you there.
Like if that's my only criticism really is that moment should have been a little bit better explained, because apparently in the comic books Martha is that world version of the Joker.
Yes.
So you had the parents were split. So you got the father who became Batman, basically because of his psychotic break, and then you had Martha who became the Joker because of her psychotic break. Both at the loss of their son, which I thought was a really interesting way to go, really interesting dynamic to kind of put those famous characters within the parents of Bruce. But yeah, I just feel like that moment could have been a little better explained, or at least a bit more given to us, just to tell us the fact that the Joker is actually Martha.
Yeah, I agree. I very much agree with you, because I feel that it would definitely, not to say that the Thomas Wayne character wasn't elaborated on enough. We got a very great understanding of this specific version of Batman in this alternative timeline. But I agree with you, because they did a very good job with the understanding of why Atlantis and Themyscira are at war. We didn't really need to elaborate much on what happened with Superman. I loved the fact that the little capsule, instead of falling in a field in Kansas, fell in a major city. I thought that that was great. But I also feel that that whole thing with Martha, I was like, okay, I know that she is the Joker in the New 52, but why are they doing this now? Because I feel that if they would have given us like an extra 2 minutes, I think it would have definitely showed Thomas Wayne's character continuing to go deeper and deeper into that dark tunnel that he was already heading down when he saw his son get murdered, you know, and we would have probably had a little bit more sympathy and more feeling towards him, because he's also a very terrifying character.
Yeah. Yeah, he's basically Bruce, but with no restraint. So yeah.
I think one of the few things that is, I have to say, that is quite impressive in this film is when you're in the first timeline, when the movie starts out, you can tell that it is such a different world. It's so lighthearted. There's even a couple of jokes here and there, but there is like next to no comedy in the rest of this movie. It is they try to throw in a joke, but it's not one of those Thor Ragnarok jokes that are just blatantly outlandishly funny. Like, there is a tiny bit of comedy, but not too much. It is all full on drama, and it's just such a different experience because of how dark and how dramatic it is. And what I also really like about this film is when you get into that alternative timeline, unless you're besides the Flash, you really don't have any likability towards any of these characters, not even Cyborg. And I also have to give the creators props for putting a little bit of a Dark Knight Returns element in there. Like, Superman was the president's puppet, and in this film, Cyborg is the president's puppet. And Shazam, who is always full of comedy, like, Captain Thunder is not comedic at all. Like, this is a dark, dark world. And you want a burst of sunlight, like you want to get that little spark of good feeling in a film that is just gray and sometimes blacker than gray, but you never get it. Just keeps getting darker and darker and more vicious and more violent, and you just don't get any point of relief until the Flash finally does what he has to do, which is make the ultimate sacrifice, because the world was created via the butterfly effect because he went back in time and saved his mom. And now he's got to go forward and then go back again to find the Flash going back in time to stop him so he can get everything back to normal. So it's a crazy roller coaster ride.
Like you say, like even Superman, who in the comic books is the very symbol of hope, you know, like if you go to the Man of Steel version, that S stands for hope. But even he's looking to other people for hope. He isn't the symbol of hope in this. He needs hope. He's the one who is given hope by the fact that these guys break into that facility and offer a hand of friendship. So it's really strange seeing Superman, who's usually the symbol of hope, being the one who needs hope. So yeah.
Yeah, really, it's like, you really feel for him because he's literally skin and bones. He looks like he's practically a corpse because he was immediately found and put under red sunlight, and he never had the chance to even understand what it's like to be a hero, because that's also one of the main reasons why this world fell apart. If Superman was part of this world, he probably would have been able to find a way to make peace between the Amazons and the Atlanteans. He definitely wouldn't have killed anybody. He would have really tried to create peace. And it's even more interesting when you take a look at all of the people who are actually sort of the quote-unquote heroes of this alternate timeline. It's Lex Luthor, it's Deathstroke, it's Icicle. Like, you see all of these characters that are usually the villains are now the heroes, and they're fighting against the Atlantean army, which consists of Aqualad and Tempest and Tula and Black Manta. Like, it's crazy. It just keeps getting, every turn in this film is absolutely insane. And also, but at the same time, such an amazing treat for a DC fan in general, because you get all of these recognizable faces.
The thing for me as well is, like with these DC animated movies, when they're weak, I tend to find there's a particular pattern that goes with them, and the weak ones tend to fall into that pattern of being focused far too much on just throwing action at the screen. And it goes back to what you said earlier about this one's so full of drama. And it's like, I love that, because actually every action scene in this film comes out of the drama. Whereas when you look at the weak films, they try to get drama out of the action, so we're supposed to, we're supposed to care for certain characters because they're in this big battle, and it's like, well, actually, no, it's not the way you do it. Whereas here, it's like, actually, they do all the groundwork, they do all the flashbacks and the building of these characters and the building of this world, which is different from the one we usually know, so that when the battle does eventually kick off, not knowing who's gonna survive, who's gonna cop it, it's like, yeah, you're genuinely intrigued. You want to see where this is going to go, and for me, yeah, it's so much better when the big action scenes are born out of the character stuff, out of the drama itself. Like there's a lot of scenes in this where it's just people talking, and I think for a lot of people, like my younger self, back in the days when I was really big on Batman the Animated Series, and still am, obviously. I really liked those kind of episodes where there's a lot of fight scenes, a lot of action, and that's kind of what I went for. Whereas I'm not that guy anymore. I want story, I want character, and the fact that we get so many scenes in this where it's just people talking, it really doesn't bother me. There's drama in that, there's meaning in that, in the conversations between characters, so that when the action does eventually hit, it feels more rewarding rather than, say, I don't know, Green Lantern, Emerald Knights, in which most of that film's running time just seemed to be lasers and spaceships crashing and people fighting in zero gravity, and it was just like, it bored me. I got, even now, that's still at the bottom of my list. For those reasons, and there's another film we're going to talk about on this show, which it doesn't quite swing all the way to that kind of point, but it is guilty of it in to a large degree. So yeah, one of the best things about this film is they've concentrated on story first, the drama first, who these characters are, what their pain is, what their trial is, so to speak, and yeah, that all comes out, that all plays out in the action rather than just being a load of noise kind of thrown at the screen,
Right.
basically.
And even the climactic battle between Dr. Zoom, Professor Zoom, and Flash, it's a very powerful moment, especially with how it ends. And of course, then we go back to the fact that the Flash does in fact manage to fix everything, and he gets that letter to Bruce, which is extremely emotional. But I agree with you on something that we discussed a little before we went live, and that is how the film ends, because I wasn't exactly sure where we were in terms of timelines, because when I rewatched that movie, part of me feels that that moment is not part of this new universe that has been created. I feel that it is part of And the old universe that we first got in the beginning of Flashpoint Paradox, even though the costumes looked a little bit different, and what they don't know is that a whole new world has been created. And that's the new 52 line. But again, I could be totally wrong about that. I'm not sure. And the only reason why I have those feelings is because when we get into the next film, the voice actors change. So that's where I'm trying to come with this idea. But this whole event creates the new 52 universe, and that also creates the many, many films that come after this specific one in this film library up to this very day. As a matter of fact, the one that's coming out next, which is based on the death of Superman, is going to be based on the comic book, but at the same time, it's going to take place in this new 52 animated universe that they're currently working with. So it's going to be very interesting to see that. And we also get a post-credit scene in this film. They go the way of the MCU even more by giving us post-credit scenes. So again, I agree with you based on what we discussed earlier today before we went on the air. I think it added a little bit to the confusion.
Yeah, I just... like the way I see it, we have the Justice League as they are at the start of this film. Then the Flash goes into, changing history in that. But then he rewrites it at the end. So he allows his mum to die, makes that sacrifice, like you said. So I don't get why we don't just go back to the universe that was. Yeah, to me,
Yeah.
it's just it's one of them time paradox things that's like, how do you get your head around it?
Yeah, it's the multiverse thing, and DC loves
Yeah,
the multiverse.
but
So,
yeah.
so how would you rate this film based on your own specific rating? Because we have to go and rate every single one of these films like we always do.
Yeah. It's I'm not sure I can quite give it the full on 5. Like, still to me, Wonder Woman is still, still the one to beat. That film's pretty flawless to me as far as the DCAU stuff goes. Like I say, I was a bit thrown by that scene with Martha laughing, and like it took me a while to catch up with what was actually happening there. And yeah, there's all the time paradox stuff. Just it sends my head in a bit of a muddle. But yeah, brilliant film. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I would also not say that it's perfect because I recently did a top 10 list now that we've officially reached 30 in this library, which is absolutely insane. I went and revisited my thoughts when there were 20 of them, and I was curious to see if I actually would feel the same. But the Flashpoint Paradox is still on my top 10 because it is a very, very strong film. And I would probably also give this, like, based on my rating of 4, a 3.5 stars because it is one of the stronger and more deeper films story-wise. It's one of the most jaw-dropping action-wise, and voice acting is great too. It's a very well-written film, but I just feel, like you said, it lacks that certain something that makes it perfect.
Yeah.
So the new 52 era has officially begun, and we, of course, did cover the Batman story last time, but now let's talk about the Justice League story. So, in this new timeline, the Justice League has yet to unite, and we have this movie called Justice League War. Basically, when you take a look at Justice League, the animated series, Justice League was formed because of a event that one hero could not take care of on his or her own. The same could be said of what happened in the Justice League film with Steppenwolf. But this time around, there is no lead up. There is no threat beforehand. Darkseid just comes right at you. He is the first foe that they tackle as a team.
Yeah,
And
kind of feel like they blow their wad a bit early there.
yeah, exactly. But that's the funny thing. That's exactly what happened in the New 52 Justice League issue #1. I never read it,
Right.
but Darkseid is their first foe that they face as a team.
Mm.
And it's my overall thought about this movie is it is 90 minutes of pointless fun action. It's a fun action film to watch. You'll have your gripes, but you'll have a good time with it because it is actually very interesting to see these characters that you know from so many years how they are noble, they are proud, but this time around they're all self-centered, egotistical assholes. So it is so interesting to see them in a new light. And like in Flashpoint Paradox, it's like you really can't get behind some of these characters because they're just assholes.
Mm. I really hate what they do with Green Lantern in this.
Yeah,
Oh,
you know what? He's got great lines, but oh god, you just want to punch him in the face.
yeah, I'm sorry, they're just making stupid. He's so dumb in this. He's like a jock dumb. I mean, I'm not the biggest kind of, you know, Green Lantern fanboy when it comes to the comics. I can't say I've ever really read his stories in the comics and that, but I have a rough idea of what Hal Jordan's like, and I'm pretty sure he's not like this. I'm pretty sure he's got more intelligence than this. Okay, they want to emphasize the fact that Batman is the brains of the outfit, but you don't have to make one of your other lead characters a complete simpleton in order to make Batman seem more intelligent. It just, yeah, I feel like if I was a Green Lantern fan, if he was my, you know, my number one guy in the Justice League, I was coming to this movie to, oh great, Green Lantern's in it, let's see what he's got. I would be pissed, to be
I mean,
honest.
like I'm watching this. I'm watching this guy, and I'm like, I'm more curious about what the Watchers are like in this universe because I'm like, how the hell did they pick this guy to wear the ring? Like, he's not
Mm,
worthy.
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
It's, you know,
yeah, I
and
mean,
it's like
yeah.
they go for like moments of humor, like the bit when Batman takes his ring from him,
Hmm.
and it's like, again, I get why you're doing it. Batman, you know, Batman he's a badass. He's more intelligent than most, and he's got these mad skills and that makes him more superheroic a lot of the times than the people who actually have superpowers. But it's just you're doing it at the expense of making a character that a lot of people love and look up to into a complete numpty, basically.
Right. Now let's take a look at the Golden Trio. Let's take a look at Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman because I still think what's very interesting about Batman is that Batman is the only one that doesn't seem to change. He always seems to be the same guy. And the craziest thing is, no matter what universe you put him in, he's always going to be able to find his place. I find that so interesting about him in this, and even in this film as well. This is also the very first time that we get Jason O'Mara voicing Batman, who has basically been voicing Batman since that moment. I think there's been like a couple films where he hasn't, but as part of this storyline, he has been the voice of Batman.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
And Superman. That's an interesting version of Superman.
Yeah, who was this again?
Oh, Superman was actually voiced by Alan Tudyk, who is
Right, yeah, from
yeah,
Firefly. That's
yeah,
right.
who's now like one of the major voices that is always picked in Disney now. He does so many voices for Disney now.
Yeah, no, I liked him in this actually. I thought he did a pretty reasonable job. But yeah, Cyborg again. I mean, and it could have been more to do with the writing, the dialogue that they actually gave him. I wasn't overly sold on his character in this. He comes across as really whiny. Like there's that like this scenes in this with really heavy exposition. Like there's a moment when he's in a plane with who's he with? With he might be with Green Lantern or Flash, one of the two. But he basically just gives his whole kind of, I'm not human anymore. I'm more machine than man, and it's like so woe is me, and it's just oh, dude, grow a pair, come on. It's like,
yeah.
but again, I think that's the dialogue. I think that's that's a it's a good thing to explore that side of Cyborg's character, and it's something that I actually think they did quite well in the live action movie.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really down on that film, but one of the things I think they did quite well was the character of Cyborg, was getting into his head of, this guy who was once a star football player and is now just, a hunk of metal. So that's definitely an aspect of his character that you need to explore. But I don't feel they explore it here. I think they just hit you over the head with a mallet with this really clunky dialogue, in which you basically just Basil expositions it all over the screen.
Yeah, I like Superman in this movie because you know how everyone always calls Superman the Boy Scout? Like he's the guy that follows the rules and and he never seems to want to take it further than he has to. But I love the fact that basically that is all thrown out the window and Superman is literally the high school bully. Like I love how Green Lantern and Batman first try to not necessarily take him down, but try to get him to join them. And I love how he just picks Batman up and slams him against a wall and goes, "So, what can you do?" Like I like that. You just don't get that from Superman. And Wonder Woman is such an interesting character now because she is just like this proud creature that just she's not there for the sake of being the savior of mankind and womankind. Like she is just there to say, I am a proud Amazonian, I am strong, I am woman, hear me roar. Although, and I loved that the Wonder Woman movie with the Patty Jenkins movie did actually pay tribute to this. I love the scene with the little girl and the ice cream. That is too funny. I love how she takes the lick and her eyes light up and she says, "This is the greatest thing that man has ever made." So she goes to the ice cream and she goes, "You, sir, should be proud." And like when they had that scene in the live action Wonder Woman movie, I was so happy because that is such a great scene. And it was Wonder Woman was weird to me. And also the whole love interest that sparks between Superman and Wonder Woman, which is something that makes so much sense. Like people were always saying that mostly the woman that Superman ends up with because like she's the one that would be able to handle him. Like I'm talking Kevin Smith dialogue here right now. It's interesting, but it's very interesting and unorthodox. But I think that is what the New 52's premise was.
It was a bit confusing though at one point because Lois Lane turns up, and I felt like he was cheating on her. Like clearly they're not an item in this world, in this New 52 world, because yet, yeah, at this point in this film, they're not because I was just like, oh, you've just been caught. But then I'm like, oh no, he's not. He seems okay with this. So yeah, I gathered from that the way they were with each other that they're not quite together yet. But yeah, it still felt like it felt like he was cheating on her, basically.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was interesting. One of the biggest pluses of this film is Shazam. You got Sean Astin voicing him in adult form, and I think that he's also one of the characters that didn't change in this new timeline. He added so much great comedy, and Sean Astin voices him in this movie. So something that was like straight out of left field for me. I never would have anticipated that, but he was such a fun character. I really enjoyed Shazam. And it's great for me because Shazam is a character in comics that I know has been around for so many years, but I never really read his comics. I really didn't know much about his story. And when Bruce Timm finally got him into one episode of Justice League, it was so great to finally see him. So I'm so happy that through these movies, they're using him a lot more because, especially with the Shazam movie coming out next year, we really need to find out who this guy is and learn a little bit more about him. And I think that they're really capturing him very well, no matter what form or what timeline you put him in.
Yeah, the best thing I've ever seen of Shazam, and the first thing actually, the first thing I ever read about the character, I didn't even know who he was until I'd read the book, which was Kingdom Come,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
was just
Kingdom was
like
great.
he was such a conflicted, dark, badass character in that it made me want to know more about him. Unfortunately, everything I've kind of seen of him since has never quite lived up to that. But then Kingdom Come is such a flipping good book anyway.
It
So,
is. It really is
but
one of my favorites.
yeah, like I like him here. Um, but again, it's just I feel like they've got so much in the pot to kind of deal with here that they're trying to give as much time as possible to each of these characters. But a lot of them are getting really shortchanged, and I think that's what makes a film like Flashpoint Paradox so good as well. Is that they focus in on one character. Actually, it's Flash's story. It's a Justice League story, but it revolves around Flash, and I think that's the best way to go about it. If you make it a particular character within the Justice League story, but when it becomes one of these, there's a threat to humanity, all are involved. Now we've got to give them equal space, equal screen time, you know, equal golden moments. It doesn't quite work because just there's no way to do that within it. I mean, it's not even a 90-minute movie. It's like what 75 minutes,
I think
something
like
like that.
yeah, yeah.
So, man, it's just not enough screen time to get that level of yeah. So I do feel like a lot of these characters are shortchanged. Like I know you were really big on Wonder Woman. Going back to what you said before, the ice cream scene. I think that scene was much better handled in the live action Wonder Woman
That it
film.
was. I agree. I agree.
I just I don't like the whole stuff where when they're outside the White House and she throws the lasso of truth around the guy, and he's you know he admits that he cross dresses as Wonder Woman when he's in his private time, and it's like
Yeah,
right,
you're right.
okay,
You're absolutely right. It's like I said, it's a fun ride, but you're absolutely right. There's it's just fun, but there's no substance. Even when
mm,
Darkseid shows up, it's like
yeah.
he's so forgettable.
Mm.
And it's really all about just these characters just uniting and becoming a team. And even when they actually do become a team, they still don't really give a crap about each other. They really don't. And it just, like I said, the fun factor is there, but in terms of substance, there's like next to nothing.
Mm.
If
Yeah.
it wasn't for the solid action sequences and some of the comedic moments, this probably would have been an utter bust for me. It probably would have
Yeah.
been one of the worst, but I still do have fun with it.
Yeah,
That's
I do have fun with it, and I think, like for me, Batman and Superman in this are the strongest element of it. Like you said before, when Superman's holding Batman, I like that side of Superman in this, like seeing that in this. But I like the fact that Batman is Batman. It's, like you say, he doesn't change. He's kind of like the most reliable one of the group with regards to knowing what you're going to get. And thankfully, Batman being my favourite member of the team, that bodes well. It scores it some brownie points that it would probably otherwise not. So yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Really, it's fun if you allow it to be. If you let if you sit back and say, okay, it is what it is. I'm just going to enjoy the banter. I'm going to enjoy the characters I like most. But like you say, there's no substance here, and that's When you come off the back of Flashpoint Paradox, which was tons of substance, genuinely touching moments, real character development, things that kind of hit you in the way they were intended. You feel like it was more calculated, more risks taken as well in many respects. And this just doesn't. It's very formulaic. It's very, big bad guy brings threat. Everyone unites, gets over the differences in order to defeat him. It's like, okay, it's team superheroics 101 basically. It does what it says on the tin, gets you there. You can enjoy it, you can have a laugh, you can have a bit of fun, but it's really forgettable at the end of the day.
I mean, I also think another plus in the film is the animation. I do like the looks of all the characters, especially all the crazy costumes that you have now. Like, I love the fact that Green Lantern's shoulder pads glow. Like, there's green all over there. Like, Batman's not wearing spandex. He's now actually wearing armor on him. And I like the fact that Superman, instead of a yellow S, he's got a black S, which basically is the overall vibe that the New 52 is supposed to give you. Like, you're literally supposed to feel like your entire beloved DC world has officially been flipped on its head, and here is the badass, extreme version of your characters. If I was going to rate this film, I would probably be somewhere in the middle. I mean, this used to be one of my top 10. It's crazy. But it was number 10. It was number 10 out of 10. So that shows you how low it was. But I think it was just, like I said, I think it was just because of the action sequence and even a lot of the foul language. Like, I mean, for crying out loud, Green Lantern called Batman a douchebag. You never hear that come out of a cartoon character's mouth. So that was pretty interesting. But these days, it's not in my top 10. I don't even think it's in my top 20 at this point in time, but it's still a fun ride. I would probably just give it a 2.5 stars out of 4.
Yeah, I think you're right. To be honest, when I think about it, if you think around the time there was about 20 movies out, I think this probably, it would stand a good chance of making my number 10. Obviously, when you get to 30 odd movies, then that changes. So I think you're right. It is around the middle somewhere. It's just it's a time passer. It's entertaining, but it's nothing more than that. And I when I watched it at the beginning of the week, and I put my grade on Letterboxd, I gave it a 3 out of 5. But it was I felt like I was being too harsh if I went 2.5. But I kind of feel like I'm being a bit too generous going with a 3, to be honest. But no, I know I can be overly critical at times, so I'm going to go with a 3. But it's only just a 3, really, for me.
All right. Well, then we get another post-credit scene, which really excited me because we all know there's one specific character missing in the term. Well, technically, there's actually really 2, because J'onn J'onzz ain't there either. But I heard that J'onn J'onzz is not part of the Justice League at the very beginning, but Aquaman is. And we get our prayers answered at the very end of this movie with a post-credit scene when you see a gigantic Atlantean submarine come out and Ocean Master comes out and declares war. But then we get Justice League, Throne of Atlantis, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, before we start talking, this movie is a piece of shit. and it's upsetting.
It's not great. I'm gonna have to pull it up on Letterboxd now because I can't remember what I gave it the other day. But yeah, it ain't great. It's definitely the weakest of the 3 we've discussed tonight.
Yeah,
I'll say that much. Here we go. Where are we? I'm looking. Okay, okay.
I see the
All right.
I see the evil smirk behind the hand.
I'm actually surprised by what I've given it. To
I
be
mean,
honest.
overall, it's not a great movie, and I feel that although there are some parts of this film that are enjoyable, but you know, as someone who wants to see a character like Aquaman be taken seriously, because Bruce Timm already did that with Robin. He turned him into a serious character with depth. He even did that to a small degree with Aquaman when we got a great origin story of his in the Justice League animated series. And even after seeing such a terrifying version of him in Flashpoint Paradox, you would want to see a strong Aquaman character. I feel that in terms of his origin, I think they did well with that, but
Yeah.
everything else around this is not good. I mean, it's like that's how it goes in movies these days. It's like, I'll just give you an example. One of the best movies in theaters right now is The Incredibles 2. Now, Brad Bird said that he already wanted to make sure that Elastigirl was going to be the main focus of this film. He knew what he wanted her to do, he knew who the villain was going to be, but then he said what took all the time to finally get this movie into theaters was to put a great story around this major plot point. And that is what Throne of Atlantis fails to do. The main crux of this story is Aquaman learning about his lineage and becoming Aquaman and joining the Justice League. But everything else around him, whether it's the portrayal of the villains, whether it's the role of the Justice League in this film, and we'll get to that in a little bit, they just don't give that much effort to the rest of this story. And that's why I feel it falls flat.
To me, where this, I think the first 2/3 of this film are actually not bad. You know, if you don't know who Aquaman is, you never even heard of Aquaman, and you come and you watch this film, I think you get a pretty decent kind of understanding of who this guy is. You know what he's all about. I don't think it's quite as impactful as it should be. Like, you know, the stuff with his mum and his dad, and you know, feeling like he's torn between two worlds and all that. I don't think it quite has the impact that it should when certain events are revealed. You know, like when he learns of his origins and whatnot. Yeah, I feel like it should hit you a bit harder. Or it should hit him a bit harder. Put it that way. Um, but for the most part, those first 2/3, it you know, it's doing something. It's taking this character on a journey. Um, and my biggest problem with it is the final act, and
Yeah,
it descends into the what I was talking about before, where the action becomes more important than the realities of the situation. You know, like realities. I know nothing about this is reality, but within the world they've created, the realities of all that just kind of suddenly take a sideline so that we can have a splurge of action on screen that doesn't actually mean a right lot, because I'm not quite emotionally invested enough in the characters. But more importantly, the choice to go the way that the villains go is completely nonsensical. Let me just point something out, okay? So the villains, towards the end of the film, are coming towards a city inside a huge tidal wave. Okay, this tidal wave could just sweep away the city in one fell sweep. Game over. End story for the humans. Job done. War won. All right. But then the tidal wave stops just as it gets to shore, and an army come out, an invading army with spears and hand-to-hand combat weapons, and then decide to just hit the streets fighting. And it's like you've just demonstrated in that one scene why a lot of the concepts behind Aquaman just don't work, and why a lot of the concepts of giving a character these kind of powers does not work. Because the moment you get into a situation like this, you better come up with a damn good reason as to why they are not just tidal waving that whole city, rather than, you know, like doing that rather than doing what they do, which is go in with an invading army. It makes no sense to me. And then we get like literally like 15 minutes of just nonsensical action, which doesn't need to be happening because the Atlanteans could have won this war before it even began. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have a very serious issue specifically with the villains in this film. I mean, Ocean Master slash Orm, all he is a baby with serious mommy issues. Like, this could not be more of a pathetic villain. And what makes me even more upset is, and it's so funny because even up until this very point, and we're going all the way back to when this character was finally animated in Bruce Timm's world, I still feel, except for Young Justice, that Black Manta is grossly underused in this universe. And I don't understand why. He is such a cool villain. He has so much potential. I mean, how can you be a hero's arch nemesis and not even come off as a threat? You know, that's one of the few things that I don't understand. Ocean Master is not Aquaman's nemesis. It's Black Manta. And we never get anything good from this animation group in any version that we have seen of him so far. And I'm telling you this, if he is not a badass in the Aquaman live action movie in December, I'm going to be beyond pissed off. I swear.
I mean, like, we do get it is revealed in this film that actually Black Manta is the one who is behind it all.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who kind of set Ocean Master off on the path. He's using Ocean Master basically. Mm-hmm. So we do still get that he is the mastermind. We do still get that he is kind of the main villain. But I'm still with you with regards to Ocean Master. I think he's extremely weak in this. His motives are just, like, I want to take over the world. Why not? And it's weak. It's just, he's not a strong villain in this. I don't know what he's like in the comic books, but he.
I found him more of a challenging threat in Challenge of the Super Friends from 1973. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I wish that they would have utilized him more in Justice League because Devil Ray in Justice League Unlimited, that is Black Manta. The problem is HBO had the rights to Aquaman, which is why Aquaman wasn't in the last season of Justice League Unlimited, and that's why they had to change Black Manta's name to Devil Ray. But I liked that version of him in that animated universe because he was no talk and all badassery action. You know, that's what I liked about him, and that's what I expect Black Manta to be. And in Young Justice, I liked that they gave him so much more character development, and the fact that this Aqualad in this universe is his son. and I believe he is that Aqualad is in fact Black Manta's son. So that's even more interesting. But he's supposed to be he's supposed to be one of the most well-known characters in all of DC villainy, and I feel that he's just not utilized. Now, I will also say another one of my major faults that I have in this movie is that there's no continuity with most of the voice cast. They change half the voice cast in this film. I mean, you still have Sean O'Mara as Batman, you still have Christopher Gorham as the Flash, you still have Sean Astin as Shazam, but you have Jerry O'Connell now as Superman. You have Rosario Dawson as Wonder Woman, who originally was voiced by Michelle Moynihan, which I thought would have been much better to keep. And they also, I said Nathan Fillion, Rosario Dawson, and they got Jerry O'Connell to voice Superman. I don't understand why they couldn't keep Alan Tudyk. I mean, I do think getting the voice of Sam Witwer to play Ocean Master was pretty cool, because Sam Witwer is the voice of Darth Maul now, so that was pretty cool to see him. And Shamar Moore also, he's still Cyborg, but I feel that the Justice League is practically, to me, non-existent in this film. I mean, the voice of Aquaman, I do like. I think that Matt Lanter is good. I really like him, especially in the beginning when he gets into that big bar fight. I like that. And I also love that moment where that big guy takes that big shard of glass and tries to stab him in his chest. It just shatters. And he's like, yeah, I'm still figuring that one out. I thought that was pretty funny. But it was just the incontinuity and getting a whole new bunch of people to voice certain characters, and luckily they're carrying them into the further films, so that's great. But it was just a little off-putting to me, so I felt that was another major fault of the film.
Yeah, I feel like Nathan Fillion. I don't know that he's voiced the same characters all the time. I feel like he jumps between characters. Is that the case?
Well, sometimes he's voiced Steve Trevor a couple of times.
Yes, that's it. I get
he voiced Steve Trevor. He voiced Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
He didn't voice Green Lantern in Green Lantern First Flight. That was Christopher Maloney.
Yeah.
But he did voice Green Lantern in Green Lantern Emerald Knights.
Yes.
He did voice Green Lantern in Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. But in War, it was this guy I never heard of. I believe his name was Justin Kirk. I had no idea who Justin Kirk was. I liked that voice of Green Lantern. I thought the voice of Green Lantern in War was good. I think it fit him properly. Because the thing about Nathan Fillion is I can't take him as someone who can be a badass. He's just a good guy. He's got that Han Solo vibe in him. He's got a good heart, but he's fresh. But he's not a true badass asshole. I never look at Nathan Fillion that way. So to voice this version of Green Lantern was very off-putting to me, and it just didn't fit. It was like how I felt when Kevin Conroy voiced Batman in Batman Gotham Knight, that anime, 6 interlocking films. I just didn't feel that he fit for that movie specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have that problem with Kevin Conroy, but I just, for some reason, Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern, he started, dare I say, he started to irritate me for some reason. I don't know what it is. But I think it might be just what you said, which is that we don't seem to get continuity with these characters. You get used to a particular voice, and then it changes, and then they bring them back, and you're like, okay, we're back there again. Make your minds up, So yeah, but I can't. I actually feel like Rosario Dawson does do a good Wonder Woman. I think I like her. I think I like her as Wonder Woman. Probably more so, I think. I do recall her standing out to me, but yeah. I can't say I remember much of what else she does in this film. I'm struggling to remember.
Yeah,
To
it's
be
very.
honest.
I mean, the only thing in regards to this movie that I do specifically remember with Wonder Woman is Diana Prince and Clark Kent on a date, and Lois crashes the date. That's what I do remember, and that's where I believe it will eventually lead to the relationship that Superman has with Lois Lane.
Mm.
I think that that's
Yeah.
the starting point, where Lois Lane literally is just her typical self, and she just sees the two of them at a diner, and she just joins them, and she tells Wonder Woman that I work with Clark and blah blah blah, you know what, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I remember.
Okay.
But I always say this, even though there are very talented people behind these voices, sometimes the voice doesn't fit the setting. I know that you haven't seen these two films, but I'll give you an example without spoiling. And it's Suicide Squad Hell to Pay and Batman Ninja. Harley Quinn is voiced by the exact same person, and it's Tara Strong.
Mm.
I despise Tara Strong voicing Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. I didn't like it at all. But in Batman Ninja, she fits so well as Harley Quinn in that film. And I think it's just the atmosphere and the role that she plays. But oh my God, in Suicide Squad, I wanted to tear my fucking eyes out. I really did not like her in that movie. I mean, even Melissa Rauch was tolerable in Batman Harley Quinn, but I did not like Tara Strong in Suicide Squad Hell to Pay. Not in the slightest. And pardon my language, I didn't mean to do that. That was just something that came out.
I actually like Roush in Batman Harley Quinn.
I do too. I do
I thought
too.
she's really good. Yeah. You're doing a very good Arlene Sorkin impersonation, I think. But yeah, Arlene Sorkin will always be Harley Quinn to me, but she's so clearly wrapped up in that character that the character became so famous, I think, because of Arlene Sorkin and what she brought to that role. But
Well, yeah. I mean, there was no comic book character of Harley Quinn until after Batman the Animated Series. The closest I do, however, like Hynden Walsh, who voices her in Batman Arkham Asylum, but that's only because she sounds exactly like Arlene Sorkin.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, this film is so forgettable. There are certain parts of the film that you will remember, but most of it is so forgettable. I think I actually caught my. I think no, I don't think. I know. I had to watch this movie 2 times before we did this live show because I fell asleep during the first time I was watching it. So yeah, so it was, and I felt horrible. Like, I don't fall asleep while I'm watching these movies. I like these movies, but now this is definitely one of the worst, and it was very upsetting to me. And the saving grace maybe was the post-credit scene where Lex Luthor shows up and talks in prison. But even the voice of Lex Luthor in that film was very off-putting. That did not sound like Lex Luthor to me. That was weird.
No, just in this. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. I'm waiting for your. I'm waiting to hear your thought.
No, I asked. You're right in this. Lex Luthor in this.
Yeah, Lex Luthor is in the post-credit scene of Throne of Atlantis.
Oh, man, what did he do?
Yeah, basically, basically what happens is Ocean Master is obviously captured by the surface dwellers, and he's put into a prison.
Oh yes.
And then Lex Luthor comes over and he says, "I have a proposition for you."
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
And he's voiced by
That's
Steve Blum. He's a
that's
famous
what I mean,
voice
though.
actor,
It's
but
just that's what I'm talking about. It's so forgettable.
forgettable. Exactly.
That scene just totally slipped my mind. Yeah, no. I was looking at my letterbox. reason I was so surprised before when I looked at my letterbox score for this is that I actually gave it a 3 out of 5. And honestly, talking to you about it now, like I've watched all 3 of these movies we're talking about tonight. I watched all 3 of them in this past week. This is the one that I can remember least about. And I'm like, I'm desperately trying to. All I can remember is that stupid big ass action scene towards the end,
Yeah.
in which the Atlanteans just make a dumbass move rather than just destroying the city with a tidal wave.
Mhm.
I remember, I remember Ocean Master being quite whiny. I wasn't quite as down on Black Manta as you were. I did like that he was the brains of the outfit, essentially. I thought, as someone who doesn't really know these characters, it was quite a nice thing to see that rug pull of actually Black Manta really being the main villain. Although it kind of had a bit of a G.I. Joe vibe about it, if I'm being perfectly honest, and not in a good way. Not that I think you can have a good G.I. Joe vibe, to be honest. But yeah, it's forgettable. It is.
Yeah.
I remember the first two. I think in the first 2/3, I had some problems, mainly dialogue issues, things that are a bit. Could have written that a bit better, but I think it's mostly that. It's mostly that third act. I think the film sets up the character of Aquaman well. It sets up his dilemma, his dichotomy, so to speak, this world or that world, or a bridge between both. But it just blows it in that third act by wanting to just throw action at the screen and not really stick to the drama of things. So yeah, I think I'm going to go 2.5 instead of 3. I think because just talking about it and seriously not being able to remember much about it says to me that it's not that memorable. Not in the way that
Yeah. I
Flashpoint.
mean, I mean, I
Flashpoint Paradox.
remember. I mean, I remember having positive feelings to an extent for this movie, but when I watched it again, I was just very upset. I mean, like, look, I own this, but I have no shame in owning all of these films, good, bad, or indifferent, because I still feel that there's value. And even the worst parts of an ongoing story, you have to include them, otherwise, you're going to be lost. It's the reason why I have no issue with the fact that I own all the MCU films, even though there are some that I truly do not like. And yeah, I even do, in fact, own a copy of The Last Jedi. I hate to say it, but I do.
Hey, I love The Last Jedi. I
All
love
right,
it.
all right. You're
Yeah.
allowed to like it. You're allowed to love it. I'm allowed to hate it, and that's the way the world works. But
Mhm.
what I would give Throne of Atlantis 1.5 stars out of 4. It's just not good. I wish it could have been better. It had so much potential, and so before we actually wrap this show up, I just wanted to talk to you about one other major important thing, because at this point we've actually reached like a milestone in this whole lineage of films. Like, we had gotten to the point where we had over 20 films.
Mm.
So the thing that, I don't know about you, but when these films first came out of the gate, they were just something good. They were something interesting. Even the ones that were not good were just fun to watch because you found some value in them. But now that we are officially taking a different turn, and while we are still having some solo films coming out of this library, there's an ongoing story now. Do you feel that after seeing these 3 films that it helps it or that it hurts it? And does it keep you excited for what could be coming down the pike?
No. Um, I prefer I prefer standalone stories. I mean, I don't know actually. It's I feel like we're going to get peaks and troughs. I feel like we're going to get more peaks and troughs doing it this way. Like if you look at the 3 Batman ones we did in the last episode, there was definitely an increase in quality. I think as we went, I think we culminated in
It was a good
Batman.
trilogy. For a
Yeah,
Batman trilogy, it was
yeah,
very good.
yeah. I don't know. I think going back to the start, you look at a film like Wonder Woman when you're not tied to anything else, you're not tied to any of the other films. You can just concentrate on that one film, on making that film the best that it can be. I'm not against where they've gone. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like they've now put themselves under this thing where
I think I
they've
think
got
what
to
you're trying to say is like they sort of like locked themselves into a contract, so to speak.
yeah, like and they've got release dates for these things. They know in advance when they're going to do them, and because they've got to tie them all together, there's no leeway on that. They can't at any point say, well, actually, this could do with a bit more work. Let's hold off. Let's wait till whenever next season. No, it's like it's that age old problem of release dates that have already been pre-planned, which I've always thought hurts the film industry, hurts the films themselves. I just yeah, honestly, I don't know. I don't know. I like continuation. I like that idea of everything being interlinked to a degree, but then I kind of miss the idea of back in the day, you'd have a film. If it was good, you'd get a sequel. If it was good, you'd get another sequel. You wouldn't have the three sequels that are coming after it already planned out. And I think Marvel is to blame for that mentality, obviously.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, don't get me wrong, still love what Marvel are doing, but like before we went on tonight, me and my wife were watching Black Panther on Blu-rays. The first time my wife had seen it, and before we stuck it on, she was like, she's seen all the others. She's seen all the others except Thor Ragnarok, and she's like, is there anything you need to remind me of that's happened in any of the previous movies that'll play into this? And I was like, bearing in mind I hadn't seen Black Panther since it was on at the cinema, and I'm racking my brains, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think this is pretty self-contained. And then as we're watching it, she's like, "Should I know that guy? Is that what's that all about?" So like like she forgot that
Yeah.
T'Challa's father got killed in Civil War.
Yeah.
She forgot who Ulysses Claw was from
Right. Age of Ultron.
Yeah, it's been so long since she's seen those movies
Yeah.
that now it's like, something pops up. She's kind of scratching her head thinking, I feel like I know that guy, but I don't quite. So it's that kind of mentality where actually doing it this way, it's great for the religious, it's great for the people who know these characters, love these characters, and watch these things again and again. But for the more casual viewer who just like, sees this on Now TV and think, oh, I'll give this a watch. They might be like, yeah, not feeling it myself, because they don't realise that element of the film is tied into something that's already come before. So yeah, it has its advantages and its disadvantages. And I think if I was asked to call it either way, I think I would prefer them not to do this. Let a movie stand on its own terms, like Christopher Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy. He didn't plan ahead. He just said, "Look, make the best movie we can make, and if it's good, if people like it, then we'll think about what we're going to do with the sequel." I think I prefer that mentality.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned that you watched Black Panther. I actually went to see a matinee of Ant-Man and the Wasp this morning. Um, but yeah, I agree, because one of the few things that made me very excited when this library first started being shaped was, ooh, maybe we're going to get some really awesome origin stories, and we're going to get some great standalone stories, and we were getting some of those. Like, we got, Batman Under the Red Hood. We got Green Lantern's First Flight. We even had a film with a sequel with Superman Batman Public Enemies and Superman Batman Apocalypse, which was fun. And even the big project like the Dark Knight Returns, which was wonderful. And I was really hoping that there were going to be some more of those great comic book stories, and maybe even more of those two-parter films, which ironically now we're getting one of those. But we've had this discussion so many times. It's like, I would love more of these great Batman stories. Like, there's still rumors that they're working on Death in the Family. I would love it if it was done in the animation style of Batman Under the Red Hood, so you could watch the two of them back to back. I think that would be a very nice thing for the fans.
Yeah.
I would also like to see more Elseworld titles, because Justice League Gods and Monsters was supposed to be based on the Elseworlds theme, but it was one of Bruce Timm's original stories. And we also got another Elseworlds title later on with Batman Gotham by Gaslight, which we will review at a certain point in time. But you and I know for a solid fact, would love to see Kingdom Come become a two-part film. I think that they could make Crisis on Infinite Earths, but it would be a three-part film, maybe.
Nightfall, man. You mean Nightfall?
Nightfall, yes,
Nightfall.
absolutely Nightfall. I want Nightfall too. And I also would like to see more of these other characters get a headlining film. Like, I would love another Wonder Woman movie. I really want to see Blackest Night, if they'll make it, or Sinestro Corps War. Like, there's so many other great stories to tell, and I feel that locking themselves into this one specific universe is doing more of a disservice than a service. Now, granted, we still have plenty more of these films in this timeline to go, and as someone who has seen them, and I know someone like yourself, if you've seen them, there are some good ones that are still yet to come, but we'll get to those at another point in time, and we'll see how the death of Superman turns out to be, and next year, the reign of the Supermen, we'll see how that is, and I'm pretty certain that we're going to get more news this coming week with San Diego Comic-Con about future animated projects. But anyway, that's going to wrap up the show tonight, everybody. It was such a pleasure to get back together with each and every one of you again. Thank you so much for watching. Bryan, it was great to get back and talk some DC animation with you. I'm so glad that we are still doing this, and I'm really hoping that next year we will do a couple more episodes and continue on with this watching of these films, because it's a great excuse to watch them again, and it's really a great reason to talk to it with people who are fellow DC fans.
Yeah, no, it's great. Still on board. It's all good.
All right.
Let's hopefully have a few more like Flashpoint and less like Atlantis. It's just out of interest. If I was to just ask now, just ask quick answers. Give me your worst so far, your worst film in these DC line of films, and give me your best still.
Okay, well, my favorite, what I think right now is the best one is definitely Batman Gotham by Gaslight, because I just love the originality. And you're talking to someone who had Batman Under the Red Hood as his number one for such a long time.
Okay.
If I'm going to probably give you my worst, it's probably Green Lantern Emerald Knights.
Yes, same here. Yeah, I was looking at my list. Emerald Knight is still at the bottom for me. That's still the worst. Yeah, and Wonder Woman.
It's either that one or this one. It's or Throne of Atlantis. It's one of those two, because those are definitely. Also, I will honestly say I was not the biggest fan off the bat with Batman and Harley Quinn, but we are obviously going to have to watch that one again, and we're going to have to talk about that one. So everybody. It has some great moments. I will not lie about that. But anyway, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Bryan, once again, a pleasure. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Have a great night, and thanks for watching.
Bye.
Hey, thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. If you're new here and want to see more of what my channel has to offer, please click on the link to my last video, or hit that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all of my uploads. Content of all sorts is posted here quite often, so trust me, you do not want to fall behind. I will see you in the comments, and actions speak louder than words.